We'd like to welcome you to the Healthcare Revolution podcast, where we empower you to take control of your health, restore your trust in the medical system, and achieve lasting wellness. I am your host, Brad Powell, Doctor of Physical Therapy and owner of an award-winning foundation physical therapy here in the Salt Lake Valley. Each episode, we dive into all things rehab prevention, overall health, bringing you expert insights from leaders across the healthcare fields. Please note, while we aim to provide with the best knowledge and advice, the opinions shared represent those of experts in the field and are not to be replaced with professional medical advice. So let's revolutionize healthcare and wellness together. Welcome to the Healthcare Revolution podcast. Today, we are talking about buying back your time and how virtual assistants can unlock freedom, focus, and profitability growth. This is a unique podcast because we are all CEOs in our own unique ways, whether it be for your own company or you're a CEO in your home or a CEO of your own life. And Will Humphreys is our guest, and he is an absolute expert in this area. He owns a virtual rockstar company where he employs thousands of virtual assistants in the Philippines, and we're super excited to dive into what this can do for your own individual life. Most of the time, founders of companies, they don't need more grit, they just need leverage. They need to figure out how to leverage things. They need to figure out where to spend most of their time. And this podcast, we're diving into all those items. So it's about reclaiming your time, protecting your focus, and growing without losing your life. So our guest today, Will Humphreys, he's a doctor of physical therapy. He's a healthcare entrepreneur, a disruptor. That's what I love about him. He's a CEO and a leadership coach. He's scaled healthcare companies up to 5 million plus revenue. He's built and led teams of over thousands of people. And his philosophy is all about profitability, unlocking possibility. And I love his philosophy on money. It's so important to understand those concepts and how they can help you. So our promise today is if you want to grow your business or your home or your personal life back, this episode is for you. So welcome to the podcast, Will.
I can't be more excited than I am right now to be with you, Brad. Your show is not only phenomenal, but the people who listen to it are change makers. They're the ones who are investing all this extra time that they could be doing other things in bettering themselves. So I take this very seriously, and I'm excited to share what I can that will move the needle for these people who are listening.
I love it. You started in clinics, and this year we're going to hit 4 clinics.
Woo!
And so excited. So I'm just kind of right at the tail end of where you ended. Yes. in your PT world. Tell us where this all started, where this new vision has come from, so it gives us some context. I love your passion for this area, and I really want people to understand that.
Yeah. So it happened. Everything pivoted for me. I didn't realize it at the time, but on a Friday before Christmas, back in 2013, I got some news. It was like before Christmas, the clinic was doing really well. It was one of those rare times where everyone showed up for work for me. I only had a couple of clinics, but it was that first clinic I opened outside my original one that really everything started caving in on me. And all of a sudden my CFO, my part-time CFO, his name was John. He says, "Hey, Will, we need to talk." And so he pulls me off the floor. We go into my back office and I sit down, and I can see in his eyes that like things are not good. And I'm sitting there getting panicky, and he goes, "I don't know how to tell you this, but you have $5,000 left in your account and you have $10,000 in bills to pay. Which bills do you want to pay?" I was out of my line of credits. I was out of all capital that I had had. This felt like the end of ends. And we made some hard decisions. It went back to my billing and collecting. And Brad, the thing I'd tell you at the time is that you couldn't have found someone working more hours or doing more than me at that point. And this was where everything shifted without me knowing at the time. But it took something else that really moved me later that night, where I get in the car and I'm just kind of glazed over with stress. I don't know if anyone here can relate to that, but just that feeling of driving home and just feeling so in your thoughts and feeling that fight or flight sense of just ickiness. But I couldn't stop thinking, like, how are we going to make payroll? It occurred to me we hadn't bought our kids Christmas gifts yet, as we were going to go to Idaho for Christmas. And so we were going to buy them there. And I'm like, with what money? Everything's leveraged to the hilt in a negative way. And so we all have felt that leverage in that way. Our whole discussion is about how we can reverse that leverage point in the opposite way. But at that point, I was the victim or the at cause. excuse me, the effect. I was at the effect of poor leverage. So I'm driving home and it's pitch black, go in the dark, come home in the dark. That's the world I lived in. And there was this beeping sound, beep, 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 and it wouldn't go away. So it kind of snapped me out of my haze. And I looked over and it was because I had so many paper charts. That's back when we didn't have digital EMRs. I had so many paper charts in the seat next to me.
I can't imagine those days.
It was hell. But you have these paper charts. In some ways it was easier, I will say that. But I had so many paper charts stacked up that my car thought there was a human being sitting in the seat next to me. So I had to pull over and buckle him in.
Put the buckle.
I had to buckle in my homework for that night that I still hadn't gotten to. I get in, I open the door, my wife sees my face. She knows immediately he's done. I'm so sorry, honey. Go lay down. I didn't even say anything. She had seen that face so many times. My younger son, Ethan, grabs me by the leg. He's 6 at the time. And he goes, "Hey, Daddy, do you want to play?" And I said, "No, Daddy's not feeling well." And as I'm walking away, he goes, "I'm sorry that you're not feeling good again." And it was the again that echoed in my mind. And that was when everything kind of occurred to me. The reason I got into what I did, the reason I became a leader was to increase my income, my impact, and my freedom. And this was the exact opposite of that.
Can I give some context to this? Just for those that are listening, if you have started a healthcare clinic, I ran a painting company for about 6 years, and we were profitable within like a week. And actually, I got all of my deposits for the whole summer, $30,000 of income checks in my bank account before we even started. Healthcare is very different. If you have opened a clinic, I have so much respect. Like the respect that I have for those who have gone through that journey is so high, because the issue is when you open your doors and you choose to take insurance within your clinics, it takes around 60 to 90 days to get credentialed. So meaning you can start seeing patients with that insurance. And then it takes, the clock starts from there of 60 to 90 to even 120 days to get paid. So you do the math, you're literally paying out all of your team, all of your expenses for almost 6 months with almost no income. So there's this huge lag in payment. So it's not like just setting up your cookie business and you're automatically getting income flowing in. You got to go into this journey with a lot of capital and a lot of systems and a lot of support, and the family's got to be on the same page. You're working 90, 100 hour weeks to get this thing off the ground and not taking in any income for at least 6 months. So I just want to set the stage with that, because as Will tells his story, it is so taxing, because we have this vision of creating our own clinics and serving patients in a very specific way. Mm-hmm. And this is the sacrifice that these people have to do to get there. So Will, take it back over.
Yeah. You came in at a beautiful point, and I appreciate that acknowledgement, because fast forward, I have started 4 other companies since I sold my PT practice. All of them were exponentially easier, all of them. And they're all profitable and operating now. So it's, I remember laying there at night, that particular night, going, this was the opposite reason why I did this. And I was committed to never being in this position again. So I started really diving into the world of coaching and consulting and learning a lot more aggressively. I almost walked away from the business, Brad. I was almost completely out. But
so not even selling it, you were just going to walk away.
Yeah, I told my wife, I said, I can't do this. I don't want to be that dad. My dad never was home. I'm not going to be that guy. We'll just be poorer. I was already poor. So she's just like, she was so great. She's like, yeah, if you want to walk away, let's do it. But why don't we get some coaching? And that was the introduction of this thing called leverage and time. And, we have a lot and money, by the way. I think it's important to understand leverage, time, and money. If there was a tattoo I could get on people's backs who are business owners or people who feel strapped for time, it's that these 3 things go together to help crunch us and be at the effect of, or we can leverage for our benefit and be at cause over it and expand our time. Because time is not, everyone says we all have 24 hours in a day. Our perception of time and what we can do within that time based on how well we know ourselves and what we are focusing on creates exponentially different outcomes. It's why Elon Musk has so many billion-dollar companies or multi-hundred-million-dollar companies, right? He's CEO of all these things because he understands these concepts very fundamentally. And so that was the beginning of that shift for me. And the quote that I always like to use when it comes to leverage comes from Archimedes. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. So when we talk about these things, oftentimes we feel like, well, I just don't have enough time. We don't ever realize we can create time. We can experience it differently. We can slow it down. We can speed it up, all based on our focus and our understanding of those three levers of time, money, and fulcrums.
I love it. And I love the freedom it creates when you can learn leverage. The first time I learned the principle of leverage was in auto mechanics in high school. And we were trying to lift out a transmission out of this car. And our instructor came over and he said, you guys are just trying to manhandle this thing. And he goes out and he gets this big bar and he says, there's power in leverage.
Yes.
We got to teach you how to use leverage so you protect your body. And it was such a powerful principle as a 16-year-old because I watched this smaller guy pretty much use this huge lever arm to power this transmission. And then he actually showed us how to move an entire engine to line it up to be able to put a bolt in based on the lever arm that he was using. So I love your analogy of leverage, but we have to know our leverage points and how big is the lever, what's the training that needs to go involved in that, and how we can utilize those things to help us and give us freedom.
Yes. And so using your analogy, which I love that you shared, you said about how your teacher was trying to help you protect your body. When it comes to time, it's about protecting our soul. It's about protecting our experience and our impact on the people we love and on the world. So, using that lever example, you have the lever itself and then you have the fulcrum point, right? And where you put the lever and where you put the fulcrum is what determines the result. And if we're not actively, consciously moving those elements, then our lack of focus becomes our focus, and we find ourselves going after every little thing, which moves the fulcrum to a point where we have to work extra hard to get the same result as somebody else. See, as everyone's listening to this, you have people in your life that you've always looked at and thought, man, they're so much more successful for me because they're smarter, or they were just born in a better circumstance and all these different elements. Well, what if I told you that everyone has that same potential? It's about learning how to leverage our lives in a way to where we can get the impact we want.
So tell me what started, you've kind of told this story of how did you get into Virtual Rockstar? Explain to us what Virtual Rockstar is and what led to that movement. You call it a movement versus a staffing company.
Yes.
Like tell us your history in that.
Yeah. So I sold my practice in 2018 because my desire has always been to help the other business owners. That was such a hellacious experience for me to own a business that when I finally figured it out and I had my 5 locations and our net profits were above 30%, which in physical therapy is amazing.
It's unreal.
I sold at the top of my game where I didn't even need to sell. I had a passive business. I was working less than 10 hours a week in it once I learned how to leverage my time. So less than 10 hours a week, my company was making more money than ever. And of course, as entrepreneurs, that's the time we decide to blow everything up. So I sell this practice because I am so passionate about wanting to teach what I've learned to others that I start building concepts around who, not what. It was like who of my team members were available, who are the people I could build partnerships with. So I started a medical billing company called In the Black in 2020. Was shocked how easy it was to build that company relative to a medical outpatient practice. It hit $1 million, I think, in less than a year, totally different problems, but very easy relative to owning a healthcare company with insurance. And I started recruiting is my superpower, Brad. So I started recruiting people and just realized I wanted to find someone more aligned with my work ethic, and I wasn't finding it in America. So I leveraged a company like the one I own now. So I started hiring people overseas, and I was shocked when I would hire someone how they would cry when they got their job.
Yeah.
This was life-changing money to them. The company I was using was so bad at finding the right people skill-wise, but I realized it was just this low-hanging fruit for them. They could just send resumes and eventually one would stick. So I created my own legal entity for myself. I never meant for it to be a standalone business for others. And I hired people for my own billing company. And I had somewhere between 50 and 60 virtual assistants that I hired directly. So they were technically employees of mine internationally. And I started like leveraging my billing company, and that started growing. And I started another coaching company, and my clients were like, hey man, please help me find a virtual assistant. You keep bragging about those people. And I was like, no, I've got 2 other businesses. I don't need a third, but thank you. And it wouldn't go away, Brad. They would not go away because they could see how I was leveraging my team for my benefit at such a lower cost. And they were like, please teach me how to do it. So finally I piloted a program just to get rid of them. 2 of my partners, I hired 2 VAs for each of them. And so a month later, I was doing a follow-up call.
Hold on. One partner had 2 VAs.
Yeah. So yeah, each. So there was 4 VAs against 2 partners. And like one was front desk, and no, one of them had 2 front desks. They had a front desk person leave, and they just said, I just need to outsource my phones and my people will bring the patients back. So I want to outsource my phones to VAs and see how that goes. The other guy hired a medical biller and an insurance verification specialist down in Texas. And so the first girl was in Washington, the guy is in Texas. And a month later, I'm getting on a call to like just see how it's going. And for physical therapy, there's a time lag in terms of what we do and how people feel. And I was like, a month is just enough to get this off of my radar. And they got on the call and they said, hey man, this is the best thing you've ever done for us. You have changed our lives forever. How do I hire more? By the way, you should do this full time. And I just had never had that kind of feedback. And it was so easy because I know how to recruit so well. So I started Virtual Rockstar. I started hiring virtual assistants specifically for PT, OT, and SLP practices. I can hire beyond that. I have some, like 10% of my business is like construction companies, you name it. But it's literally almost 90% of my business is PT, OT, and SLP because we've gotten really good at leveraging what we knew in our own business to support people's rock stars. So most people come to us just looking to scale their existing team. And so they're worried initially that there's going to be all these issues that we can talk about later, Brad. But like what's been happening is we've now got almost 300 virtual assistants. We are serving almost 180 companies across the country, and many of our companies have more than 100 employees. So some of our clients have almost 20 VAs just for one of my clients. So it's been unreal to see how this has changed.
Before we kind of talk about the quality of these people and what these people from the Philippines are extremely talented. I have been just blown away.
Yeah.
How quickly they have, my virtual assistant, my executive assistant's named Stella, and she is incredible. The quality of work that she does is almost better than Americans. I mean, I shouldn't say almost. It actually is.
Yeah, for the most part. There are
literally
exceptions
like
that rule, but on
a quarter
average,
of the training. Like they're so talented. They're so good at what they do, and they're eager. And I remember having our first interviews because you guys screen them all out, right?
Yeah.
You make it super easy for us. I literally show up to an interview. You got 6 of them. You send me their videos before. And it was one of the most humbling interview processes I've ever been a part of.
I'll tell my team. Thank you for sharing that.
They were so humble. And I literally shed tears. I'm not even kidding you, Will.
Sure.
I was just so humbled by the group of people. And I just felt honored to be there. And I told the group this. I said, I have never been a part of a group where I just felt so much love for people. And you people are just incredible. Your humility, your gratitude, what you're bringing to the table. And I literally was shedding tears as I was telling the group this. I'm just honored to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're all coming wanting a job for me. And I'm just like, thank you for allowing me to be in this circle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so your team screened all these out and got me the best candidates and then set up multiple interviews. And it was all within like an hour and a half. So it was so ridiculously simple for me. And then you partner with a group called VAMP that then trains them on certain aspects, whether it be marketing, whether it be email sorting, or pretty much executive assistant type skills. And they did probably 80% of the training, and then 20% came from me, right? But what's amazing to me is how quickly these people catch up and are ready to just rock and roll. And I love the title of a rock star, They're virtual rock stars, because that's truly what they are. They are incredible, and they just get up to speed really quickly. They're efficient, and they're so kind and humble and all the above. So much gratitude for all of them and your team for doing all what they do, because it's been incredible to work with them.
Well, honestly, Brad, that says so much more about you because you can create those environments, but it takes a heart like yours to really appreciate it. And you are like the perfect client for us because you are looking to grow your impact. And when you asked me earlier about the movement of it. Well, this is it. When we find the right partner and we can find the right assistant or medical biller or front desk, whatever that role is, and we can pair them together, it's a magical experience because our purpose as a company is to build and strengthen families. And I believe that when we have the right team with us, you transform a team into a work family. But we're also changing the lives of the individual families. My hope is that you don't go home to your kids the way that I had to go home to Ethan that day. I hope the virtual assistant isn't worried about paying their next bill. For us with the virtual assistant side, guys, oh my gosh, I get on these monthly calls with all of my VAs and they share wins like I was able to care for my parents in the hospital in a way I wouldn't have been able to. I bought my first car. I bought my first refrigerator, like the joy of that. And, so we're truly we're transforming families, but we're bringing some families out of poverty. And so I love that you have that vision because there's all these like stigmas around VAs and I get it. Like, from poor English to having our customers feel like they're being outsourced, all the things. But like for a guy like you to come to the table who has this like big vision, you're able to see when it's this versus something else, right? And that's why we call them virtual rock stars, because there's a lot of virtual assistants, but there aren't as many virtual rock stars out there. And I think it takes a leader to see that.
And I want to dive into some of these stigmas here in a minute, because these stigmas are real.
Oh, yeah.
And they are important to address, but there's things that Virtual Rockstar has done to really eliminate 90% of those.
Yes.
And I also want to dive into when is it appropriate to use one and when is it appropriate to have a live human there too.
Yes.
Because that dichotomy, you could say, is so important, right? Because there are times we need a human being there to interact. And there's just a list of things that just need to be done on the back end. And if I'm spending 20 hours of my week just responding behind a screen, Stella's role, I told her this from the beginning, I want as much white space on my calendar as possible.
Nice. I love that clarity. I want to hit that for people who are listening. You knew what you wanted, as much white space on your calendar as possible. I think a lot of people wouldn't know to say that.
Yeah, and I actually learned that from you when I was at a conference, and that was the first thing I had told Stella. I need white space. And people are like, well, you just want to be lazy, you just want to go golfing. No, that is not it at all. Literally, I need clarity. If I need time. If I can't be a visionary, if I can't think about the future and how to create jobs, how to leverage, how to create more space for my patients, create a better patient experience, build bridges. I mean, last week I sat in surgery with two of my top surgeons, two neurosurgeons, actually three surgeons, and an orthopedic surgeon. Spent all day with them. And one of the surgeries was my mother-in-law, and one was one of my friends that was a patient. But I sat in 6 surgeries that day, but the whole intention was, the first intention was to be there for my friend and my mother-in-law. And then the second intention was I need to build bridges between surgeons and therapists and in the healthcare community. And I learned so much of how we can improve our communication and how we can be on the same team. I would sit with them as they did the pre-op with the patient, and I saw the gaps, and I saw as they went in the post-op, like after the surgery, and gave them education. And then I met with the patient when they went home, and they had forgotten everything that the surgeon just told them. And I was like, how did you forget that, right? But I'm understanding gaps in healthcare. But the reason I'm saying this is because that white space on my calendar allowed me to create more bridges, right? Allowed me to create a better system and a better revolution for these patients, because if we're not out there improving the system, who is?
It's true. You mentioned one thing, so many things that I liked, but one thing I want to just highlight in particular was the judgment that happens, and it's always internal. You mentioned that, like, the whole, like, what if there's a lot of white space? What if I'm being lazy? That is all, this is true. All of us, it's coming from within, and it usually comes from our parents if we're getting psychological about it. But here's the truth of the matter is that we have a couple of stigmas that are holding us back from leveraging our environment, virtual assistants, or as Dan Martell says, buying back our time. And one of them is our relationship with money. Most of us have been taught that if we're using our money in any way that like just creates space for ourselves, or if we're using money to do a job that we could do ourselves, that's a sign of ingratitude, weakness, and all these elements. It comes from a time in the Depression when people did everything they could to survive, and that built a lot of respect for their kids, but it got miscommunicated through generations. The truth of the matter is that when we hire other people to buy back our time, we expand value in so many ways. The people we're hiring, we're changing their lives. The extra time that we create allows it to fill it with whatever we want. And for anyone listening to this show, this may not be true for all people, but I guarantee, Brad, it's true for all of your listeners, because no one's spending time developing themselves unless this is their truth. That if they had more profitability, more time, white space on their calendar, they're going to fill it with two things they love doing that are productive. Like in your case, how you're changing healthcare policy in the state of Utah. What a waste of time for you to be doing, in my mind. I don't mean this to come across as judgmental, but like any minute that you're doing email versus that is a complete out of exchange with the universe. Because and then the other component is we're going to do things to better ourselves, what's wrong with bettering ourselves? Richard Branson said when he was asked the single greatest thing that he could ever do as a leader, like what the best business advice, it was exercise. He goes, the greatest trick of business for me, the greatest advice I'd ever give is to never not exercise. And how often do we sacrifice our personal like enjoyments, whether that's like in his case, it's kite surfing. So what if it's golf? What if it's spending time with friends? Those elements are going to nurture our soul, which allow us to be sharper tools to change the world. And so like, there's just no such, those are just fallacies, like we have to do that.
I have a question for you to summarize this because, we are talking about business CEOs, we're talking about executives, but ultimately we are all individually the CEOs of our own life.
Yes.
Right? We get to design our life. We get to say what's in it. We get to make choices, right? So why, Will, is it important for you and for all of us to understand the importance of having white space on our calendar?
Because we only get one shot at this life. And in that time, in white space, we are able to create. We're infinite creators. There's two schools of thought. Everything's by chance or everything has purpose and meaning. I follow the second line. So if everything has purpose and meaning and my existence matters and I'm meant to help people in the world, I have to be able to focus on what I love. So again, there's nothing wrong with doing emails if that's what you love. But as you said,
Does
the CEOs
of our,
like, let me give you a real example. My wife saw me leveraging all these points and she was talking to me about how much she hates cooking. So this is really vulnerable to share with the audience, but this is a real applicable example to everyone.
Yeah, CEO of the home, right?
So we're in the home. My wife hates to cook. She's an amazing cook. She hates it. Absolutely hates it. I am struggling and gaining weight at the same time. So I have been taught the whole concept of who, not how. And so I approached my wife with this idea of like, what if we hired a part-time cook? And she thought I was insane. It's the same thought at a higher level. Oh, we're not. First of all, we can't afford it. Number two, I can do that. That's a horrible judgment on me as a mother of the family. She's our home CEO. She doesn't have a full-time paid position. So she's the home CEO. That would be, in her mind, initially it was like this big judgment of like how she was going to be seen as like all these things. And then finally I showed her, I'm like, okay, so how much time does it take for you to do grocery shopping and how much do you love it? She showed me, she hated it, by the way. Some people love it. Again, nothing wrong if you love it, but she doesn't. She's going through those steps. I'm like, what would you do with your spare time? And that was the big scary question, Brad. And this is another like pitfall for people. They don't know what they would do. So I spent time with her. I'm like, well, what do you love? And she started talking about her church work. She started talking about charities and organizations and all these different elements. And so as we built out, like this is a months of discussion, by the way. This isn't like a single
You're
discussion. This
giving
was
us the
months,
back of
maybe
the
it was
book
over a
summary
year.
here.
And then finally she landed on this realization. How could she afford not to hire a part-time cook after we did some research and we saw what they cost? So we found somebody to come into our home, and she makes 3 big family meals a week that turn into lunches, and they're all very healthy. She does meal prep for me for 1 meal a day for me. And between that and the leftovers from the other meals, almost all of my meals are covered. I never have to think about it again. And I've been losing weight, which, by the way, you could extrapolate and go what that investment in savings is versus the health complications 20 years down the road. Like we could do a whole thing on that, but let's just look at
And
my
those are
wife.
things that people don't think about, right? It's like what the cost of not doing that, right? And a real application for this and a tool that can help our listeners is Free to Focus. The book Free to Focus, I think Will is pulling a lot of information that I've read from that book. I'm not sure if that's the source here, but it's beautiful because it talks about the free to focus is the compass which points you north, and it's a balance between 2 aspects. It's proficiency and passion. If you are passionate and proficient at those roles, you are going to be free to focus, right? You're going to be able to focus on what matters most, and the needle's always going to point north. But if you're in the drudgery zone of you're not proficient or you're not passionate, what happens, right? There's just so many negative implications that can come in your life, and so many people live in the wrong quadrant. Spend most of your time doing the things that excite you and you love and you're passionate about. And it doesn't mean you can get rid of all those things in your life, but we're working towards that needle of pointing us to true north.
Yes. And it's so I love that you say that, because we also spend so much time worrying about money. And that was me going home to my son, Ethan, all those years ago, is that it was a scarcity mindset in money that you have to, number one, I believe that you had to work really hard for money. Number 2, I believe that money was scarce and precious. And what I've flipped now is what I truly believe is that money is an organic, abundant result of doing what I love. And it has been.
Say that again. We need to hear that again.
Money is a organic result, organic, abundant result of doing what I love.
It's so true. Oh my goodness. You do what you love. I had this PE teacher that he had like 12 kids, and were they thriving financially? Most likely not, but he was a PE teacher paying for all 12 kids. And now one of his sons is a neurosurgeon, and like you do what you love, the world rewards you for it. I'm a true believer in that.
And the thing that we forget is that reward, that phrase, our cup overfloweth, is that when we do what we love, what we're really doing is we're living our calling in life. We are living our purpose. And as we start to live more in that purpose, we get more energy, we get more abundance, our cup starts to overflow, and now we have abundance to share with others. So let's go back to my wife. This isn't the only thing that changed this for her, but she's no longer cooking. So what is she doing with those hours per week? And it was a lot of time that she was spent, because the lady who cooks for us will also clean up afterwards. Like, what did she do with her time? Well, at first she needed time to kind of get clear on her passion. And what she found was this passion for helping orphans. And so through a snowballing effect, we ended up going to Africa for the first time a couple of years ago and fell in love with service. Now my wife is on the board of directors of a charity called Care for Life. She is so good at it, Brad. We go back every year. We were just there 2 months ago, where we personally donated supplies, but also served and loved on these hundreds of orphans who do not have that connection. Heather is responsible personally for raising tens and tens of thousands of dollars for these charities. And so what happens is, how do you think she shows up at home now when I come home, and the kids, like, what kind of mother is she showing up as? She was powerful before. There was no concerns. It's about performance and elevating performance. She's got this extra energy, which, by the way, has fed my soul. And I promise you, even though I can't put a direct link of like cause and effect, I promise you the money we spent on that cook has come back to us exponentially in the form of personal growth, personal wealth, and overflowing abundance to share with these kids in Africa. We are now organizing a huge movement where we have literally over 50 companies that have signed up that are PT, OT, SLP companies that want to go over and like literally transform these rehab centers for kids with cerebral palsy. And it's all because my wife decided to stop doing this thing called cooking that she hated. It all stemmed from Heather.
And replaced it with purpose.
With purpose.
Right? Like that is so incredible. You take something off of your plate, you focus on purpose and vision and creating a better world, and then it serves you in a financial way, in a purposeful way, in a passion way. It makes your heart happier, makes your soul more hungry to do good, right? There's just so much value in following that. So tell us about the stigmas. People come on there. You've heard everything. Give us like some of the top stigmas you hear when people are like, I don't want to do virtual. Our clinics are not going virtual. We need human touch only. And there's no space for that in our clinics. What are kind of some of your thoughts?
The big three are, I don't want my patients to feel like they're being outsourced. I don't want my team to feel like I'm trying to be cheap and devalue them by going internationally. And then number three is just, I don't even know how to do it. The third one is more why we come into play. The first two have almost never been an issue. The patient one has never happened. So here's what our experience is with customer service, especially from an international perspective. I call my manufacturer of something that I bought. I get forwarded to India or some country. I can barely understand what they're saying. They don't really understand what I'm saying. It's frustrating. It's extra work for me. It takes more time. It's less efficient. And then maybe it doesn't even get handled well. That's what we're terrified with our patients. So what we do to control against that is, first and foremost, my company pays more to our VAs than anyone else. You can get a cheaper service for VAs. If you want a VA, you can pay like $10 an hour to an agency. If you want a rock star, we're going to charge you a little bit more. Now, mind you, we're still going to save our clients almost $20,000 a year compared to paying an American $21 an hour. But
what is the difference with, so $14 an hour there? It sounds like it's being cheap.
Yeah.
To them, what is that dollar amount?
So yeah, the average Filipino makes on average it's like $100 a month. It's something very small like that. So what we do is we're providing enough money to them where we start paying our Filipinos between $7 and $10 an hour. When they work for other agencies, they'll start being paid $1 to $5 an hour. So we pay them 7 to 10, and then we mark up 14 to our clients. And that gap in the middle, we run a 15% profit margin, Brad. Very transparent about that. Honestly, this last year we were at 12, but we're shooting for that 15 mark. Anything above that, we're reinvesting back into the Filipinos. After a year, every virtual assistant gets money to cover health insurance and retirement. And I do all sorts of educational components on how to help them continue to increase their value. In addition, extra money will go towards a typhoon relief fund that we've created so that when people lose everything overseas, which happens to typhoons, that we've been able to replace complete homes for people. And anything above that goes to African orphanages.
So not only you're providing a lifestyle and income for these people, but you're using this extra money to benefit them as well in other ways.
Yeah, and that's why it's so different. So that when we put an ad out, we get way more resumes because of all these factors, because the Filipinos feel like they're helping the African orphanages, which they are. So you get all this combined factor to where when we put an ad out, we pay more, better benefits, and better world impact. We get on average 250 resumes for every open position we source. And it is not something that we take lightly. We like on a video call, we'll interview over 10 to 15 people per position before you go to a group interview.
And I love that you guys customize it too, right? You meet with the person that you're hiring for. They went in depth. I filled out a form of what I was looking for, what I wanted them to do. It was very, very specific. So the specificity of the executive assistant was extremely high. And then they go out and search. They have a big database of all these applicants, and they go search and do their best to find the exact VA that would be best for you. And then they get these candidates a room, and then you get to choose.
And you hear their English. You hear their English.
Get to hear everything, because that was my biggest fear is like, well, culture is very different. English
Yes.
is very different. Like, what if they just don't understand our culture and the way that we see things and their interpretation of my, people emailing me? Like, what if there were so many concerns? And I listened to everyone speaking. I'm like, y'all speak perfect English. What happened?
And I think it's because when you pay more, like the people who speak really, really proficient English, they are waiting for jobs that reimburse at our level, and they stay longer, which is why we retain over 97% of our clients. We have less than 3% churn of people who hire us, because even if that person that they hire doesn't work out at first, the second almost definitely does. And they have such great English. Not everyone has perfect English. If you're hiring for an insurance verification specialist, what you're looking for is a little bit different. You don't care if they have perfect English if they're just really productive at getting and accurate at getting insurances verified or authorized. So for us, it depends on the role. And we produce that in the beginning. So we've never once, Brad, in all of our years of doing this, had a client say, hey, my patients feel like they're being outsourced. Quite the opposite. And we have metrics that show that when you hire someone overseas to be on the phones, and we got people, Brad, who have screens that when you walk in, there's not a human being. There's a screen and
we have them in both of our clinics, and we have a VA.
Oh my gosh. So what's your experience on that?
Initially, when we had our first VA, it was rough. It was a really big learning curve for us. A lot of these concerns that we're talking about were prevalent.
Real.
And we just picked the wrong person. Right? Now we got another gal in there, and she is rocking it. And so we got screens at both clinics, and there is extreme value in having the human touch there, right? But she's doing a lot of back end stuff, the phone calls, the financial agreements, just getting everything ready for our team. And when you walk into our clinics, you're greeted by a human there, and it allows our office managers and front office coordinators to stick to what they're good at the human touch, and take them off of the phones. Because what you saw before is people are walking in, our front office is on the phones and you can't even talk to them, right? No. But now they are so engaged and so present with the patients because our virtual people taking care of a lot of the back end stuff. And then if they do get busy with a patient, they can go to the kiosk and jump in with a virtual assistant as well. And they don't have to sit there and wait in line. And they're just as efficient virtually as they are in person. So now there's no other way for me. Like we're going to get them in every single clinic. And like I said, there is that balance. You cannot lose the human in-person personal touch. And in the future, who knows what that looks like? I know your future, I've heard where you feel like it's going to go in the next decade. And I agree with that. I really believe that healthcare, because of what we're getting paid, keeps going down. There has to be a change. And the front face might be your healthcare worker, right? Might be the PT greeting you at the front door. I don't know what that looks like fully. I don't think any of us do, but I think we got to go to these hybrid versions and then see how that goes and grow it from there.
Yeah, you're an early adopter. End of this decade, you heard what I said before. By the end of this decade, you won't go into a medical clinic. I should say this, 90% would be my guess of all medical clinics are going to have automated front desk solutions with either virtual assistants or just straight up AI that seem and act like human beings. I just know that regardless of the long term, if we have a rock star at the front desk, what we need to realize is that that's a sales position and a quality assurance position, not a reception position. Those people who are calling to schedule, those are sales calls. And that person's ability to quickly and accurately get people in is everything. Speed kills deals is a common phrase. So if we had all the reception work handled by AI or a VA, then you're in a position where you can you close a lot more deals. You capture more of the organic stuff. That means less friction on marketing, easier growth, all the things.
I'm going to tell you a stat that's just going to make you sick because it made me sick. I only learned this a day ago. We had a new phone system and it's tracking, giving us statistics. It was reported to me that we only answer our phones 52% of the time.
Yeah, that makes me sick.
I've lost some sleep over this, Will.
Yeah, I get that.
Unless we can improve that really quick, we're coming for another virtual rock star. Those are patients calling in, right? Those are people that need to be served. And if we're not even answering, that's a huge problem.
It's a massive drop of revenue, no question. And it's a bottleneck. I think, that's one of the reasons when I coach people who are joining Virtual Rockstar, we always help them understand that you bring it to the American team. If you present it like, hey, I'm outsourcing overseas. versus, hey guys, I'm piloting this program because you guys are so valuable to me. I want to give you guys the gift of focusing on what you love doing, which has the bigger impact. I'm looking at piloting this program with international support. Very different language triggers very different emotions, right? And both situations can be true, but the way that people receive it is like, okay, we're just trying this out. That's why I don't have any long-term contracts. I want people to try it. And if it doesn't work, if their team rejects it, you can pull it out at no loss. But that's never happened.
What you said is so brilliant. And I hope if you're thinking about hiring a VA or an EA, you really heard what Will just said. When you roll this out to your team, how you do that is super critical. And his suggestion is to, which I believe is really the best way, is to tell your team, we're going to pilot something. We're going to pilot having a VA in the clinics. If it doesn't go well, that's totally fine, but we're going to be all in on this pilot. And I need all support to make this happen. And if it works, great. But we have extreme value in all of you, and we want to keep all of you, and we want to continue to grow this. We want to improve your ability to be present with the things that matter most in front of you and take the tasks off of the back end that you get bottlenecked with, right? Stella, my executive assistant, she's even doing a lot of my podcasts.
Wow.
And Lauren, one of our marketing girls, it's freed her up to be out with physicians and create relationships in the community rather than be sitting behind her computer doing editing.
Right.
And that's where we want her. We want her interacting with our team. We want her interacting with the public, creating public spaces where we can, mend bridges and build bridges. But she was stuck behind the screen. Now my executive assistant is taking over a lot of that extra work, and it's freeing Lauren up to do all these other things. So love it. I love everything that you're doing. I love the movement you're creating. It's serving so many purposes. It's so synergistic. It's beautiful, and just so much respect for what you do. Let's see if we can summarize. Yeah. For everyone that's listening, what are the top reasons for having an executive assistant or a virtual assistant in your clinic or in your life?
Number one, to free up all the stuff that doesn't give us energy so that we can do what we love, which has been shown to not just improve quality of life, but exponentially increase our revenue. That's like the main reason.
I love it. Any other ones? Any other big reasons?
You change the lives of the person you hire. That you're bringing that person oftentimes out of poverty. You end up creating a family team because these people are so committed that it impacts them in a personal way that helps us see what this life has really meant. I believe that conscious capitalism is one of the main solutions to the suffering in the world. So when we can expand internationally, that's a big one. Another reason is that, and this is the biggest reason why people say they love our service, Brad, is that when you have someone on your team who's working like it's life-changing money, it's hard for that not to be impacting other employees. The number one thing I hear is, I love all the things about saving money. I love all the things about having a dedicated employee that like asks me at the end of the day, what else can I do for you? Which is never an American thing. They go, but they say their favorite thing is that it makes the American employees work harder.
On multiple levels, like, they're going to replace me. I better step up my game. Right?
They are a rising tide, no question.
Yeah, like it just raises everyone, right? It lifts us all. It's like, whoa, they're doing that. They're pulling those stats. They're pulling that production. We need to revamp the way we believe. You know what I mean? And what's really accomplishable within a workday.
And it gives people freedom. Another reason would be that, like, I have had people who pilot it initially to support a rock star. And then when that person comes in, that rock star turned out not to be the American wasn't who they thought it was. And so some people have gone from like, I'm going to support one of my main people to now they have this whole like army. I've got a friend of mine who has, I think he just told me, over 30 VAs. He's like, they work better than anyone else. And so it's just, you have flexibility. It's hard to find people in the States. It's super easy to find a rock star. You just call us and we get it to you in a week. It's super fast.
I remember we finished the conference that I was at with you, and I'm pretty sure a week and a half later I had my first virtual rock star. And she is so awesome.
It's fast.
And I want to end with this story because I think this really hits home so much of the purpose and the mission of what you're striving to create. I won't tell too many specifics, but my executive assistant wants to start an orphanage for kids. Wow. To be able to come after school and to be able to have a safe place to play. And that was one of her goals. Another one of her goals is to be in an apartment of her own by the end of the year. She's lived with family for the last few years. She couldn't afford to have her own space. And we're setting goals and targets for her and helping her create that freedom in her own life. Because we do have that negative stigma, like you're paying for cheap labor. I disagree. We are literally providing a lifestyle for these people. And as I meet with her and hear her goals and what she wants to accomplish and how she serves the world, she literally at night, she dresses up as multiple princesses. So she, Elsa, Anna, like Wicked, Galinda, she sent me a video of her performing to a group of children at a birthday party because she's striving to get a little extra income to provide for herself. And this job is freed her up to do other things and create her dream too. So you're not only creating freedom for your life, right? But you're synergistic with these people that you're creating a life for them as well. Again, Will, thank you. And thank you for following your passion and your love for serving and developing freedom for people, because it's done that for me.
It means a lot coming from you, Brad. And I'll say this, that like the greatest joy I get, hands down, is when I see someone like you at your young age doing all the things that you're doing, who are impacting people internationally. And to think that our company has a small like influence on that it helps me heal that younger guy that was beating himself up coming home late that night, all burned out. It makes me so happy knowing that Stella has you. Like the fact that she gets to work with you is so much more than the money. It's leadership development. It's going to change the life of her family forever. And apparently the orphanages as well that she's going to influence. That's why I'm so passionate. I never thought that being a PT one day, this would be my thing, but it doesn't feel like any different than what I did when I was treating patients. I'm just treating the people who treat the patients by connecting them to the best humans on the earth. So thank you, Brad, for having me. This has been a phenomenal conversation.
I appreciate it. And I just want to add this piece as we wrap this up. Whether you are in healthcare, whether you're the CEO of your home, the CEO of your life, match it up with passion, match it up with purpose, match it up with your proficiencies, and get rid of anything in your life that doesn't make your soul happy, because the whole world is rewarded when we all do that. So thank you again, Will. Appreciate your time.